Okay guys, today we're going to put the front panel on the main cab, and what I've done is laid the main cabinet down on its back, and I've set that panel that we're going to use for the front on top of the section for the front here on the cleats. And it was maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch less in width than the opening here. And you know, it's close enough. It's not really going to be noticeable once it's installed, and especially once it's painted and artwork's on it. You know, it's just not a real tight fit. But part of the reason for that is when I installed the new bottom, I probably cut it just very slightly larger than the actual width the cabinet used to be. And when I installed it, it pushed the left and the right side out just a hair. And it's more notable down here at the bottom of the actual cabinet than it is at the top. At the top it's almost exactly 24 inches. Down here it's maybe 24 1/8. And what I've done to compensate for that is I took some very thin pieces of cardboard, and I just cut some little strips. And the little strips of cardboard, I've taken those and I put them at 3 locations on each side of the cabinet to evenly space it out, so I know that this piece that we're installing is dead center in between the left and the right side of the cabinet, so you don't have a little more of a gap on one side than the other. You just split the difference and you end up with it's probably less than 1/16 of an inch. See, the largest, I'd say the largest is maybe just an 1/8 or a little less than an 1/8. That's the largest gap. And most other places it's a 1/16 or less than a 1/16. Closer at the top, it's almost no gap at the top. It's kind of like probably about a 32nd of an inch gap at the very top. But I put 3 little pieces of cardboard at the very upper part, and 3 on each side right here, and then as you get to the bottom it gets a little bigger gap. There's like 4 down here, so it just kind of evenly spaced it out, so when you install it there's not like more gap on one side than the other. That would be really noticeable. But I've got it lined up really good. Across the top I've got it to where it's just flush with that black piece that we put on to fasten the control panel with. And down here at the bottom it comes just shy of the bottom edge of the left and the right by probably a 32nd of an inch. So yeah, it's just it's probably not even a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a 32nd of an inch shy of the same length as the left and right panels on the cabinet. And what I decided to do, since this is a painted panel, it's painted on the front and the back, it's white, and I wasn't going to sand it down or anything like that. I'm going to eventually install artwork on the front, and it's probably going to be some type of adhesive artwork, you know. It'll be something, you know, either vinyl that has adhesive on the back or something like that. I wanted it to have a good slick clean surface to stick to. That'll probably work better than adhering it to rough wood like the sanded plywood that we've used on many other parts of the cabinet. It will actually stick to this just about as good as it will the laminate on the side. So I just cleaned it up, and it's really nice clean white painted surface, and on the inside it's the same. And being that way, it's not probably going to take wood glue very good, so I'm not going to put any glue on this panel. I want to install this panel without wood glue, and if there's any kind of problem with it later, I can probably remove it easier since there's no wood glue on it, but I don't think I'll change it once I get it installed. This is also the compressed stuff. This is not real plywood, and I've mentioned that in other videos. But it was just a good looking panel. It was nice and flat, and no bow or warpage to it, because that stuff, unless it gets wet, it just, you know, it stays nice and flat. And I just wanted to take advantage of it. It was a piece that had originally been one of the back pieces for the cabinet, and I threw away the other piece. It was just in rough shape, and this piece wasn't too bad. The only defects to it, there's a tiny screw hole in the back, I think, which is going to be on the inside of the cabinet. You'll never see it. And there's 2 tiny screw holes up here on top, and that's going to be completely covered by the control panel. And that's also where we're going to put some screws across here. We're going to go across here and put maybe 5 or so wood screws and flush them down flush with the surface, just like we did on the top of the cabinet, which is made out of this same type of compressed stuff. And it worked good up there. I think it'll work good up here. And the threads is going into real plywood, so I think it'll hold pretty good. And once it's hanging on that, it's really got its true support on that, I think it'll be nice and strong. But we're going to go ahead and all the way down through here, I believe probably mostly near the bottom, we're going to put some finished nails. I don't think I want to install screws, because I know the screws up here will be hidden by the control panel, which will overlap by a few inches. Now on down through here, I didn't want to take the chance of putting screws in, because if I put screws in, it's a much larger head to try to cover, unless I recessed it, you know, like I did on some of the cleats, and then come back and put some type of wood putty or wood filler or something over it and then sanded it down. Then if you put artwork over it, it's going to show probably, and the little tiny heads that are on the finish nails probably won't show. And you know, it doesn't need a whole lot of support down here, just something to hold the front in. So I'm going to try that and see how it works. I haven't had a lot of experience with that type of stuff, mostly real wood, so I'm hoping it'll hold the finish nails good enough to just hold the front panel in, and I won't have any trouble out of it. And I really don't foresee any trouble. But when it's all said and done, there may be a possibility when I get the artwork done for this cabinet, the piece that goes on the front, I may border it. I may put some type of border around it with very thin wood stock. I'll show you a piece of that. Got some really thin wood stock here. Still got the sticker on it. It's kind of a lattice panel. It's a 1/4 inch thick by 1.5 inches wide, and you can buy this in different lengths. And it's really nice, really thin wood, and it can be used on something like this, like where the edges have the slight gap. I can actually, you know, put a piece up and down the left side, and then across the bottom too, just kind of as a finishing touch. And I can miter those pieces to fit in, and just kind of almost look like make it look like it's picture framing the artwork. But I'm not quite sure I want to do that yet. I'm still thinking about it. There may be a possibility I just put one piece across the bottom to just kind of, I don't know, maybe just give it a little touch of some type of decorative piece of wood across the bottom, you know. I don't want it to look out of place though, so if I ever try that and it just doesn't look right, I'll probably tear it back off. But that's just something I'm thinking about. It would also help protect the lower painted edge of this material, because toes are going to be hitting against the bottom of the cabinet a little bit, and since this is just painted, there's a very big chance of it chipping, since this is the compressed wood and it just has paint on it. The paint could chip off, and even the compressed wood itself could chip. But if you put a piece of real wood over it, just something thin to protect it, and it could just be glued on or stapled with a very fine stapler, some type of finish stapler, then it will protect that edge, and it probably won't ever start chipping with that piece of wood there. You know, the wood would take the abuse. Okay, right now I'm going to get myself set up to put the screws in, and I'll be back in just a second. Yeah, one of my last videos where I was installing the wood for, I think, the upper back panel that was non-removable, that panel right back there, I broke a drill bit off in it, and it was one of the tiniest drill bits I have, a 1/16 inch drill bit. And you can see I used to have a 1/16 in this kit, and it's been broken and gone for a long time. And this new little kit here I had, that's the one I broke. Let's see if I can get it to focus here. That's the one I broke on it, so I've got that missing now, 1/16. But I went out the other day and picked up a few things from the hardware store, and I went ahead and bought a 2-pack of 1/16 inch Turbo Max. 10 times faster starts is what it says. Something about the Turbo Max tip, but it's by Irwin. And I think I might have bought some of these tools before, but it was only $3 for a 2-pack, so I picked that up so I could put a new bit, 1/16 inch bit, in each one of these kits. So gonna do that now, and that'll come in handy in a little bit, because when we drive these finish nails, that's what I like to use to pre-drill for those finish nails. So just a little smaller than the nail. Okay guys, I'm ready to do some pre-drilling into this compressed panel, and I've got 5 locations marked off. I came in 1 inch from each side, and I put a little cross. It's 1 inch in from each side, and it is half of 3/4, which is about 3/8. So, you know, 3/4 of an inch, take half of that. 3/4 is the same thing as 6/8, and so half of that is going to be 3/8. So we come down 3/8, just so we can be halfway into this 3/8 inch piece of plywood and not tear out on either side when we drill or run our screw. I marked the location 1 inch in here, 1 inch from here, and then I wanted to, I went dead center on this point here for a screw, and I wanted to divide the difference between this and like this screw to put it dead center, but it was running into these previous holes that were drilled for where this panel was installed as a back piece one time. And like I say, these are going to be covered by the control panel, and I didn't want to be too close to that so it wouldn't tear out. So I went over, this is almost a little over a ½ inch this way, so I went 6 even inches away from the last screw, and it made it closer to about 4.5 inches from the center point. And I did the same on this one, so it pushed it on past this little screw hole here. So there's no danger of it tearing out. It's not too close to that. If you was to put it real close to that, it could be weak because that had already been drilled in, but we just kind of eliminated that. So we're going to pre-drill right now, and we've got us a 3/32 bit in, and that's just big enough so that the screw shaft will be just a little larger than that, and it won't tear anything out. It won't bust the wood when you try to run it through. And we're not going to go in the full length of the screw. We're going to go in almost the full length of the screw. That way the tip of it will get a good bite into the plywood. So right now we've got this drill bit adjusted. It's almost the length of the screw. We're going to go in almost all of that, but we're going to stop a little short so that the screw will actually get, you know, a really good solid bite into the plywood. It's gonna get a good grip into it anyway, because the drill bit is actually smaller than the shaft of the screw, let alone the threads. So the threads extend, you know, at a greater width than the shaft of the screw. So I'm going to do that now, and better check, make sure I haven't bumped this around. I'm just checking for flush up here on the top. We've got our paper on each side, keeping it lined up like we need, and it shouldn't move because the paper's actually wedged in there pretty tight. We'll just try to go in as straight as we can. And we're stopping a little bit short of the full depth of the drill bit. And if I'm blocking the view, I'm sorry. I'm sure I am blocking some of it. If you start off real slow, the tip of the drill bit will get a good bite, and then you can go on a little faster. Now, last one. Okay, got them all pre-drilled. Now before we install them, I'm going to just grab the vacuum cleaner and clean a little bit of my mess up here, and I'll be back in a second and you can watch me drive the screws in. Okay guys, I got one of my new DeWalt Phillips head bits in. It's a little bit longer than normal, but I really like them, so I'm going to start using them and leave my smaller bits alone for a while. And going to turn our torque down to about 3 on this drill. That's pretty good for this kind of panel. As a matter of fact, I think I'll go down to 2 just for now. We'll turn it up in a minute if we need to, but I'm going to start, check our flush again. Looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just drive one in the center to keep them lined up. Okay, that's not flush, but that's going to hold everything in line. Go ahead and get one in each side. You want to check while you're doing this, make sure you're not breaking out of your wood if you're running into plywood or any other kind of board. Sorry about the squeaking, can't help it. One more. Okay, we're going to turn our torque setting up 1. Going to go to 3. We were on 2. Drive them in a little farther. And it does chip that white paint a little bit, but the thing is, it chips it right where the screw threads are going in, but then the head covers up anywhere it's chipped, so it actually looks pretty nice. Don't know if you can tell from the video, but it actually flushes up pretty nice. I'll show you a little close-up in a few minutes. But I want to finish flushing these up. I'll come back in a minute to show you a close-up.